leaving baseball right now. Let's talk about Les Miles. Yes, we're talking about Les Miles. And the reason why I'm bringing up Les Miles is because Les Miles, he received some great news, right? For him, at least. So, if you guys are not familiar, the people who run the Hall of Fame, I believe it's the National Football Foundation, they changed the rules. Well, they changed the requirements for a head coach, right? It used to be one of the requirements that used to be inducted in the Hall of Fame was that you needed to have a 600 winning percentage, right? You would have to win 60% of your games. And that was actually one of the biggest reasons why Mike Leach didn't get in the Hall of Fame. And when Mike Leach died, there was calls for the Hall of Fame committee to change the requirements because I think he fell at like 599. Like he was just outside of 600. And it's not Mike Leach's fault that he fell out of that requirement because he literally died right smack in the middle of his head coaching career. He died of a sudden heart attack. And his winning percentage was right at, let me get the exact winning percentage here. But it fell just outside of the 600, 60% winning percentage mark. And he won 158 games to 106. And if I'm doing the math here, 158 divided by 264, he won 59.8% of his games. So he fell just right outside the benchmark. However, the committee changed it to 595, which allowed him to get into. Now he's eligible to be into the Hall of Fame, and I think that will happen not this year because they already released the names for who's getting in, and he wasn't part of it. But it's going to happen, I believe, next year. And he should, because he's one of the most influential coaches of all time. The amount of guys who were part of his career that went on to become head coaches is absolutely insane. Lincoln Riley, Dana Olsen, the list goes on. Cliff Kingsbury, like the list goes on. He's one of the most influential coaches of all time. And it's not even just the amount of games he won or what he did at different places, State and Mississippi State. Those are all programs where he made very national prominence, right? Especially like a school like Washington State, right? Where before he got there, they were garbage. They were a team that, for example, my dad coached at both Arizona and Cal. And whenever you saw Washington State, you're like, check, because it was almost a guaranteed win. They are what Vandy is to the SEC is what Washington State was to the Pac-10 and Pac-12. They were an absolute joke of a program. Like, program around Vandy for the first time in the program's history, and that's a big deal for them because remember, they had a group of Washington State fans that always fly a Washington State flag at every single college game day location. So it was a big deal for Washington State. But how come that is? But how come? What does that have to do with Les Miles? Well, Les Miles is also kind of in the same category, right? He had a lot of wins taken away because of some recruiting violations at LSU. And when those wins got taken away, he actually fell under the 60% win mark. And if you look at his record now, without the sanctions, his record was 142 and 55. And if you look at that winning percentage, that is a 72% winning percentage. However, if you take away those wins, it's his record 105 and 55. And so doing the math right here, 105 divided by 160, he would have a 65% winning percentage So, hold on, that's not right. Because so doesn't matter. But I think I did the math wrong. That's why I'm a journalism major, not a math major. But his overall record, it fell out of it made him, out of contention for the get inducted into the Hall of Fame. And now, because of the requirement change, he is now eligible to become to get inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Actually, here's his actual record. It was 173 combinations of the state shooter. 108 plus 73, 181, 108 divided by 181, 59.6. So he is eligible, right? The mark now is 595. He's now at 596. So he just made it. And look, there's probably gonna be some backlash from LSU fans, like, oh, he didn't deserve to get in the Hall of Fame. He got lucky. He won with all the safest players, and blah blah blah. And look, a lot of that is true, right? I still think that yes, Les Miles win a lot of games with some of Nick Saban's players. That is true. However, he won. Yeah, I mean, he look at his, if you look at the resume alone, right? So that is two stuff. You have to factor in. I'm not gonna. But when he got the was one of the things in the big eights. He over there with each one for struggling, and he actually first year the struggle of Oklahoma at Oklahoma. And that was the first win they had in the bed robbery in a little while. But he led the Cowboys to 3 straight bowl games from 2002 to 2004, and he also had 2 wins versus Oklahoma. He actually finished 500 against Oklahoma, right? I mean, how many coaches in Oklahoma State's history went 500 against Oklahoma? Also in that very 4-year stint in Oklahoma State. There aren't many, because if you look at the series rivalry record between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, Oklahoma murders Oklahoma State. I mean, if you look at the record, I'm actually going to pull up the record right now. I remember it was a ridiculous amount of the margin is really wide. But the official record is okay. It's a lot of margin. It really is. 91 wins, 91, 19, and 7. That is Oklahoma has won 9 times compared to Oklahoma State's 19, and there's 7 draws. I mean, it's a wide margin. So that's actually fairly significant accomplishment that Les Miles had at Oklahoma State. And then after he left Oklahoma State, he got hired at LSU, and he had a 114-134 record. That's without considering the violations he broke, which reduces record to 77 and 34. But the unofficial, without the violations, 114 to 34. Right, that's his overall record. He had an 8-4 bowl game record at LSU. He won the 2007 national championship. He had 2 SEC title wins, 3 SEC West titles in 2005, 2007, 2011. He had multiple 10-plus win seasons. His first 3 years, he won 10 or more games, and they also they produced a lot of NFL players. Right? I mean, LSU became an NFL factory. Of course, it started with Saban, but all the players you can name today were coached under Les Miles. Jamarcus Russell was the number 1 overall pick. Now he's the biggest NFL bust of all time. But number 1 overall draft pick. Pearson, Tyrann Mathieu, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Leonard Fournette. Who else? Kyle Williams, who's now the defensive line coach at LSU now. The list goes Daniil Williams, Jamal Adams, Devin White. The list goes on. All those guys were not only recruited, but also played under Les Miles. It's Tre'Davious White. The list goes on. All those guys who are either in the NFL right now or were in the NFL the last 10, 50 years were coached by Les Miles. And I understand that you may have criticism about how he ran his offense after 2007. I know, of course, he put LSU into a lot of trouble because of the whole sexual harassment violations that were brought against not only the football program, but the whole athletic department as a whole. I get that. But if you look at his on-the-field resume, he's in. It's not even close. I know a lot of LSU fans don't want to hear that at times, and I get it. But he's a Hall of Fame coach. That's what it is. And when he gets in the Hall of Fame, because Saban's going to get in the Hall of Fame, so that's one. And LSU, I think that he will be the third football coach from LSU that got inducted into the Hall of Fame. There might be a little bit more. There might be as many as 5 actually, but I gotta double check that. But LSU he'll be the third coach to be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame from LSU. So he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. The list goes on. The amount of guys he produced that ended up being in the NFL is absolutely ridiculous, let alone all of his accomplishments on the field. And really, even before, in my opinion, if he actually had a modern day offense, he would probably still would have been the head coach at LSU for another 5 to 10 years. It's without a doubt. And I'm actually going to look this up to see. So he would be 1, 2, 3. Oh, wow. He would be the 6th coach to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. And then, of course, you got to add in Nick Saban as well, because you got Charlie Mack, Bernie Moore, Biff Jones, Michael Iron Mike Donahue, and Dana Exbot, right? But of those coaches I just named, he actually has the longest tenure. Bernie Moore actually has Charlie Mack and Bernie Moore have a little bit longer tenures than Les Miles, but he has something those two don't, which is a national championship.